of our fathers, I beseech you to bless this gathering of these distinguished members of our City Council and their staff. Bless their efforts and their deep yearning and desire to create a most beautiful city for all of its residents. Dear God, the facility in which we stand before you today is a facility of government, a government that has been built upon a foundation of goodness, a foundation of freedom, a foundation of liberty, a foundation of justice for all. Indeed, this is a blessed land, and we pray for your continued watchful eye for its citizens, for its leaders, and for its armed forces, who risk their lives daily to protect the ideals that you, dear God, have bestowed upon man. I stand humbly before this body of government as a testimony to these ideals and as a testimony to the greatness of this land we live in, the United States of America. I stand before you, a Jew whose father escaped the ashes of the Holocaust, a Jew whose father knew no such freedom, who knew no such liberty, who knew no such justice, who was denied his freedom to practice his religion. And it was this country that gave him safe haven, this country that welcomed him in, this country that gave him the freedom to serve God in the ways of his heritage. Indeed, God bless America. I depart this evening to New York City, along with 40 members of our community, to hold a memorial service at Ground Zero. Our message is a very simple one. From our city of Agoura Hills to your city of New York, from our residence to yours, we are one with you. Your pain is our pain. Your anguish is our anguish. Your heroes are our heroes. We may be of different faiths, different color, different race, different cities, but we are all one proud, great, vibrant country. May only goodness and kindness follow us all the days of our lives. And may we all dwell in the house of God for many long, happy years. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good luck and have a safe trip. Ms. Toulis, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Rishoff. Councilmember Corridori.
Here.
Councilmember Cooperberg.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Reinhardt.
Here.
Mayor Weber.
Here.
Mayor Weber, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Steele, could you give us a closed session report, please?
Does this work? Thank you, Mayor. Prior to this evening's meeting, the council met in closed session regarding the two items on the posted agenda. One item of threatened litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9b. One item of the consideration of initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9c. The council took no reportable action, gave direction to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. The next item on the agenda is oral communication. Pardon me.
Move
may I have a
approval of the
motion?
agenda.
Second.
Moved and second. Without further ado, our next item on the agenda is oral communications. And as is our norm, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I also, if there's any handouts tonight, if I could let you give them to, direct you to Mrs. Toulis, our city clerk, and she then will distribute them to the city council. And before we start the oral communications, there is a letter. I'm assuming there's a number of people here to speak on one particular item. At least I was led to believe that. And I'd like Ms. Toulis, if she could, to read a letter into the record that we received today, addressed to me. Ms. Toulis?
Yes, this is regarding the Ladyface Village Center, the project. Dear Mayor Weber, I'm writing you this letter to clarify some of the, I'm sorry, before I begin reading the letter, this letter is written by Dan Selleck of Selleck Development Group at 2660 Townsgate Road in Westlake Village. I'm writing you this letter to clarify some of the inaccurate statements contained in the Los Angeles Times article of Monday, February 11th, 2002, and other inaccurate statements that have been circulated about the project. 1, although we are working on an application for the project, we have not submitted an application to develop the contemplated Ladyface Village Shopping Center. When such an application is submitted and accepted by the city will decide what infrastructure work will need to be completed concurrently with the project. The city will decide how and when the city will spend the fees that will be paid with respect to the project. The city will also decide what road improvements will be made to Agoura Road and to Roadside Drive, and when these improvements will be made. Number 2, the primary source of information for the LA Times story was Mr. Ed Ball of Ball Properties, who was a project consultant hired by my company in July of 1999 and terminated over 8 months ago in May of 2001. Mr. Ball has informed me and others that he is now working with the CRG to stop the proposed project. 3, the reference in the article to statements made by a Home Depot consultant to the effect that the project would cost $15 million more than investors had committed, and that the city would have to contribute $1.5 million per year for 10 years to make the project feasible, were contained in a letter prepared by a Home Depot consultant on May 23, 2001, and probably shared with the CRG and the LA Times by Mr. Ball. The statements contained in such letter were based on misinformation the consultant assumed to be correct. The premise upon which the letter was based was wrong, and the conclusions reached in that letter are wrong, and there are no investors involved. We have never asked the city, and the city has never offered to make a $1.5 million annual contribution to the project for 10 years or otherwise. Mr. Ball was never included in the corrected results from the consultants because his consultant agreement had been terminated on May 31st, 1999. We will not ask the city to contribute to project-related expenses except to the extent the city decides to make or require public infrastructure improvements above and beyond that, which would typically be required for such a project. 5, there is no signed disposition and development agreement with the City of Agoura Hills or the Redevelopment Agency. We have discussed and exchanged drafts of a disposition and development agreement with the city attorney. That agreement is under negotiation and is in draft form and therefore has not been finalized. We have not released a copy of that document, nor will we until the document is finalized. It appears that Mr. Ball has released a version of the draft DDA to the CRG and the press that is 3 to 4 versions old, and which does not reflect the most recent terms discussed with the city attorney. 6, although the LA Times reported we have spent $150,000 to date to defeat Measure H, we have actually only spent $39,000 to date. To ensure the accuracy of information available to the city, we are willing to provide you with any other information you would request with respect to the proposed project. Sincerely, Daniel F. Sullick, President.
Thank you, Ms. Tuplis. I've asked Mr. Steele to make an opening comment before we accept any oral communications.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The city is in the process of and has already made a request to the Los Angeles Times for correction and retraction of a number of misleading and outright false statements in the news article that appeared in the California section. And we have requested a meeting with the reporter and the editor to make sure that the actual facts of this matter come out. The facts of the matter didn't come out because the Times reporter made no effort to contact anybody at the city who had any understanding of what was going on with the project whatsoever, although the Times reporter indicates that I have reviewed this secret agreement that they're referring to. The Times reporter never made any attempt to contact me or any other member of the staff that has any involvement in this matter. I think it's important for the public to understand the process of reviewing and putting together a development agreement as part of a proposed development project. Under state law and under the city's municipal code, any property owner has the right to walk into City Hall and file an application to have a development project, including or not including a development agreement, considered by the city. If such an application is made or such a request is made, the city is under obligation to review that agreement and go through the process. We have been going through the process of negotiating and reviewing various drafts of development agreements on this proposed project since well before I was the city attorney with a variety of developers. Since I have been the city attorney, we have gone through draft after draft of a potential disposition and development agreement for the Selleck project, and have never finalized an agreement for the project at all. The process is that staff and the developer try to come to some meeting of the minds on an agreement that could be presented to the City Council for consideration. A development agreement under state and local law is never in effect, never has any legal impact whatsoever unless it comes to the City Council and the Planning Commission in a public hearing, noticed and held according to law, and approved by both the Planning Commission and the City Council. The inference in this story that a deal is done is false, it's irresponsible, it's misleading. In fact, the version of the development agreement that apparently was provided to this reporter by Mr. Ball or by the Citizens for Responsible Growth is in fact a draft of an agreement that was rejected some months ago. There is no proposal on the table. There never has been a proposal on the table at any time since I've been the city attorney, which is coming up on 4 years now, for the city to make any type of annual payments of any amount, including this fantasy figure of $1.5 million per year for 10 years. The developer has never asked for it. The developer has never proposed it. The city has never even considered that. I thought it would be effective to just cover a couple of the other points in this article, sort of paragraph by paragraph, Mayor, if you wouldn't mind. The first, in sort of the sub-headline, the city has quietly prepared an agreement pledging public funds, is a false statement. The city has prepared no agreement. An agreement has been proposed by the developer. The city has, as I have said, rejected several drafts of that agreement. There has been no agreement prepared by the city. We are in the process of considering various proposals from this developer. The reason in the first paragraph that the agreement is unsigned is, as I've said, there has been no public hearing, as there must be by law. There has been no environmental review. We haven't even come close to finishing the process. There would be no agreement unless it was approved by this body at a public hearing and an ordinance adopted. In my experience, in the second paragraph, there has never been a proposal that the city would help pay, quote, pay for site upgrades and relocation of a county animal shelter. The proposal has always been that any relocation of the county animal shelter would occur solely at the developer's expense. There is also no proposal that the city would contribute its funding up front, as is alleged in the agreement. All of the recent proposals from the developer, and this is going back over a period of at least a year, have tied the city's contributions to actual opening of a store on the site and tied the city's contributions to sales tax revenue that's actually generated by the store on the site. The article said that details of the development agreement, which has been the subject of 3 years negotiation, have never been disclosed. That is, of course, true. Nobody in their right mind would try to negotiate a development agreement or any other kind of agreement of this type in the newspapers. The next sentence says the City Council has repeatedly insisted that no public money would be committed to Selleck's project. I've been involved in this project for about 4 years. I've never heard anybody insist that no public money would be committed to the project. On the contrary, I have heard from the City Council that any expenditure on public funds on this project would be severely limited. I've never heard anybody say we'll never spend any public funds. Until last week, the city denied the existence of the development agreement. The city has never denied the existence of a development agreement. We have always said that there is no development agreement been approved for this project. There's never been a public hearing held on the Selleck project. There is no approved development agreement. But anybody who reads the initial study that's been prepared on the project, anybody who looks at the documents that have been filed with the city would know that a development agreement or a disposition and development agreement between the redevelopment agency and the developer has always been contemplated as part of this process. Again, there's a statement in the article that the development agreement has been prepared according to some correspondence between Selleck and the City of Agoura Hills, but the City Council has not signed it. It has not been signed, again, because there's been no public hearing held and because we've rejected every draft that has come to the staff to review for one reason or another. There's a statement that says, under the development agreement, the city would contribute $1.5 million or nearly 20% of its $8 million operating budget and may never see the road improvements. That's a statement of opinion either from Mr. Ball, who I understand is now taken it upon himself to fight this project, or from a representative of the Citizens for Responsible Growth. That's not a statement of fact or based on any kind of fact that the reporter can verify from any particular document. That's not what any draft of the development agreement says, let alone this old draft that was rejected by the city some months ago. As to the documents from the Home Depot consultant that apparently in Mr. Selleck's letter this evening have been disavowed and were based on mistaken information, those documents have never been submitted to the city. The city has never been aware of any proposal that the city would contribute any sum even approaching $15 million. The staff wouldn't even consider presenting a proposal like that to the City Council for approval. It's a completely unrealistic and made-up number as far as we're concerned. And of course, as Mr. Selleck's letter says, those figures have been disavowed. In addition, the reporter says that documents available at City Hall indicate that Home Depot has contributed a combined, Mr. Selleck and Home Depot have contributed a combined $150,000 to the campaign against Measure H. We've checked again in the city clerk's office today. There is no such document that makes any kind of figure like that available to the public. There is no report that says Home Depot and Mr. Selleck have spent anywhere near that amount of money. The reporter didn't use the reports that are available in City Hall that show which entities have spent money on behalf of Measure H and how much they've spent. Finally, the caption of the photograph of Mr. Adams that accompanies this picture, this news story, indicates that Mr. Adams will see his business disappear to make way for Home Depot. This, I know, since I've been here, has been a very controversial aspect of this particular development proposal, and I realize that emotions run high on both sides of the issue. But I need to point out, just simply as a matter of law, that if the redevelopment agency, as part of this project, were to decide after a public hearing that the redevelopment agency was going to exercise its right of eminent domain to acquire the property on which Mr. Adams' business sits, and the business itself, a right that is granted to the redevelopment agency by state law. State law clearly provides that the redevelopment agency, in addition to paying for the property, must pay to relocate that business, to essentially give the condemnee a new business in a suitable location somewhere else. So the statement in here, first of all, that as a statement of fact, the business will disappear. The statement of fact is incorrect, and the statement that it would disappear is legally incorrect as a matter of law. Again, if the city and the redevelopment agency decided to use eminent domain, the city would be legally required to relocate that business, not make it disappear. All of these facts, all of these points are in the process of being pointed out to the reporter who should have done this homework in the first place. And as I say, we have requested a retraction and correction from the Los Angeles Times, and we expect to get one. Thank you for the time, Mayor.
Mayor?
Thank you, Ms. Steele. Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you. There's one other element of that story that the city attorney did not touch on, and it's appropriate he didn't because it's not a city matter per se. The last paragraph of that story quoted me, and it then went on to say, "Who supports the Selleck project," referring to me. I never said that. And I have written the Los Angeles Times to say that I never said that. They communicated with their reporter to verify if that information was true, that I never said that. The reporter came back and told his boss, he's right, he never did say that. And the reason I can state that with certainty is that I have never said that to anyone. I've maintained the same position throughout the last campaign that we went through, and I maintain that position today. And specifically, that position is until environmental impact reports are rendered, until we have architectural reviews and a complete application, until we have all of the things germane to a proper application, I do not have a position on this project. It is public record, and I've made the statement that I oppose Measure H. But they're two different issues. All right? Measure H deals with limitations on the city and what can be built here. This proposed project is something that may or may not be taken up at some future time. But this was a very big surprise to me to pick up the newspaper Monday morning and see that I had been attributed for a position that I did not take. Now, how serious a matter is it? Hey, I like newspapers. I used to work in the media business. I was in the newspaper business for a while myself. And I'll tell you one thing. They hate retractions. They hate to be proven wrong. But in this particular instance, they had to go back on it. And in this morning's paper on page 2, the Los Angeles Times published a retraction, which said, a story Monday in the California section incorrectly stated that Agoura Hills City Councilman Jeff Reinhardt supports the proposed construction of a Home Depot store. Reinhardt has not taken a position on the project. Page 2, today's paper. Now, there were some folks out there who felt compelled to right away glom onto this and somehow cast me as a hypocrite, which I'm sure they were pleased to see the misreported thing. But no one called me to ask if I had changed my position. No one called me to verify that information. So I would assume Mr. Abrams, who is a communications professional himself, may see fit to retract that statement that I'm a hypocrite, because I'm not. If there were backroom deals, if there was this kind of foolishness going on that's enumerated in this story, you wouldn't have to wait to hear it from the Los Angeles Times. You'd hear about it from me, because I wouldn't tolerate it. I stand for open government, and I always have. Mr. Steele made his comments. I went through this article and made my comments. You can see some of my scrawls and highlights. These are all issues with this story that I have serious questions with as well. Now, Mr. Peabody, I don't know where his repertorial credentials come from, and that's an issue for the Los Angeles Times to deal with, because I have never, in all my years of experience, seen the Los Angeles Times botch a story to this extent. We get wonderful coverage from our local newspapers, and quite frankly, our little local newspaper, The Acorn, puts the Los Angeles Times to shame when it comes to doing a story like this. And our hats off to the folks from the Thousand Oaks Star, who whenever they hear a quote or want to attribute something, they pick up the phone and they call me. or they call the other people on this council and verify the information, which is the right and responsible thing to do. So I'm not going to sit up here tonight and pontificate to you positions on this or that or the other thing, but trust this, I do not lie to you. I don't lie. You elected me to be an honest and forthright representative. I listen to every phone call. I respond to the phone calls that require those responses, and I answer truthfully. And that will never change. So I have great exceptions. I've communicated extensively with the Los Angeles Times for a few days, and I have asked them to provide a representative at this meeting tonight to come and explain to this community what happened here. I don't know as they have a representative here tonight or not. I don't believe they do. But they were invited to come and speak to what kind of reporting and reportorial scrutiny and editing went into this particular story, because it is so full of factual errors, it doesn't belong in any newspaper, let alone one that has the stature of the Los Angeles Times. And I can only hope that they recover from this and get back to doing that which they can do so well when they choose to do it. So if anybody wants to ask me other issues that pertain to this, I'll be glad to take it up later. I know there's folks who do want to speak tonight. Mayor, I thank you for the opportunity to clear up a misunderstanding and an outright fabrication that was irresponsible and a bad reflection on what's going on in this community.
Thank you, Mr. Reinhardt. Are there any of the council members who wish to make a statement at this point? If you don't, I'd like to make just a follow-up to Mr. Reinhardt and Mr. Steele. Also reflecting in the particular newspaper article, it talks about a draft that alludes that I knew about this. What this reporter didn't put down was, when I was talking to him about, was the only agreement we've ever had is the same agreement we've had with previous developers. Exclusive negotiating agreements, and the one with Mr. Selleck expired 2 or 3 years ago. So it just doesn't make sense to me how things can be this distorted and make us look this way. It boggles the mind.
Mayor, I'm
yes,
sorry, I
Mr.
wanted to add just
Go ahead.
one more thing that I neglected, and that is this. When a story strains your credulity, when you see in a story that your city is willing to give up $15 million or 1.5 a year over 10 years for a return of $5 million, you got to say to yourself, what is this? And I'm sure many of you did, because it sure strained my credulity. I may have been born on a Tuesday, but it wasn't last Tuesday. And we don't make stupid deals, okay? And to somehow suggest that we would exchange $500,000 a year for a debt of 1.5, it right away, bells should have gone off in your head that said, wait a minute, this is outlandish. And that's what's in this story. And yet, they couldn't attribute it properly. So ask yourself when you're reading this stuff what the source of it is. But I'm sorry, Mayor, thank you.
It's okay, Mr. Reinhardt. I just want to make my comments as we were talking about the newspaper article. I will certainly give the council an opportunity after the speakers go if they want to make some comments. I understand from Ms. Tublis that we have 15 speaker cards tonight on items that are not on our agenda. And as I said to you, please, if you have any sort of handouts, please give them to the city clerk. And be aware of the limit of 3 minutes. And Ms. Tublis is controlling the microphone, so it will go off in 3 minutes. So, Ms. Tublis, can we have the first speaker, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. What I'll do is I'll call the first speaker's name, and I'll call the person that's to be up after that speaker concludes his or her comments. And if the second speaker would be ready at the end of their aisle so that we can move this along so we're not here unnecessary length of time. Our first speaker this evening is Ed Ball, followed by Don Haney.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I've been before council hearing and other governmental bodies in public probably hundreds of times. I've never been more scared than I am right now. I first want to apologize to this council. I want to apologize to the residents. I want to apologize to Home Depot, and I want to apologize to the landowners that are affected by this project. I should have come before this body over 6 months ago. I specifically asked to be terminated on this project approximately 8 months ago. And a month and a half ago, I signed a quitclaim deed deeding all my interest. I had a 10% interest in the project to the developer for no money. I did not want to be tainted when I came before this council. Over 2 years ago, I stood at this podium and supported Mr. Selleck as the developer that should have the exclusive right to negotiate with the landowners. I spoke truthfully based on my knowledge at that time. Over the last 2 years, I learned the following facts. Phase 1 of the development is out of balance, according to Home Depot, by $15 million. My budget is closer to $20 to $22 million. I was specifically asked by Home Depot to provide them a budget. When I confronted the developer with my budget, he said, "Don't present your budget, we'll use their budget. It's better than your budget." And I could stand before you now and prepare another budget from scratch and have you send it out to an independent consulting engineering firm, and they would confirm that the project is approximately $22 million out of whack, if you will. Secondly, I was asked to negotiate with Mr. Mel Adams on a relocation, but I was told not to make a deal with him, as this would be less expensive than relocating him in Agoura Hills. Once I knew this, I refused to go back to Mr. Adams because I thought any further negotiation, not made in good faith, was unethical. 3, I have been asked to keep quiet with respect to my projected cost on the project to keep Home Depot interested in the project, even though I knew the development costs were substantially greater than their own estimates. 5, I know that the current plan would require a cut along the freeway side to either construct a fill slope or a retaining wall that would require a 50-foot cut. This cut could potentially collapse, taking all 4 lanes, eastbound lanes, of the freeway with it. 6, I know and have been told numerous times that there will be no second phase, and the developer's intent is only to build 1 phase and argue the road should only be widened if the second phase gets built. I've been asked to negotiate with the County of Los Angeles to relocate the animal shelter, even though I have been told repeatedly that the second phase would never get built because of the cost overruns, and therefore the animal shelter would not get relocated. I again refuse to attend any more meetings with the county, for I did not want them to remember that we spent all that time only to defraud them from what they thought they were getting. I have attended meetings with all the landowners when they were induced to extend their escrows, knowing fully that the price the developer could pay would be 25% of the purchase price the developer had proposed. I told the developer I would not attend any further meetings with the landowners, as I believed it would be unethical to represent to the owners that the city was holding up the project, which I do not believe to be true.
Mr. Paul, I'm sorry, Ms. Paul, your time is up right now, Mr. Paul. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Paul. Excuse me, I'll run the meeting, not you, ma'am. Please sit down.
Can I ask
I'm going to ask if I could bear the indulgence of the people that want to speak on this item. We have 2 presentations. One regarding some young people here, and I'd like to very much do that presentation, and then we'll go back to your comments. So if I may have the presentation regarding the watershed status by Melissa Cole Robinson of the Resource Conservation District. Is she here? Okay.
I think we're going to go ahead with the second presentation first, Dennis.
Swing Fest? Well, there's only 2 presentations on the agenda, the watershed and also the Spring Fest report.
Yes. Let's do the Spring Fest.
Springfest? Very, very fine. I'd like to ask Councilman